You're watching PCTV Channel 17, proudly serving the Port Clinton City School District community. The following is a production of the Port Clinton High School Digital Media class.
Welcome to Time for Health. I'm your host, Rachel Fall, and I'm very glad you've joined us. We hope you gain something from the program that helps you and your loved ones. We want to arm everyone with as much information as possible so we can all make good choices. And this is not to take the place of regular medical care, so be sure to include your health care provider in on your plans and your conversations. And today we have two guests. We're talking about the Lighthouse Sober Living Facility, Judge Bruce Winters and Judy Flood. Thank you for being here.
Thanks for inviting us.
Thank you.
We have met before, and this topic is so interesting, I wanted to have it on the show. So some people are sort of familiar, some are very familiar, some aren't familiar at all. So what is the Lighthouse Sober Living Facility?
The Lighthouse Sober Living Facility is just in the neighborhood, just a block north of here. It's a home that people can live in that are in recovery. Okay. People who are recovering from some sort of addiction, drug or alcohol addiction. This came about a few years ago because we were putting people in the courts through treatment, and they would go through treatment, come back from maybe a treatment facility and have no place to go. They burnt their bridges with everybody in their life who could be helpful to them. They came back only to live on the couch of the last person they bought drugs from. It was not a good situation. We needed some place for them to go that was clean and sober, where they could be surrounded by people who were similarly interested in being clean and sober. So we started working on the project to come up with a home for these folks, and that home has been in place for 6 months or so now. Okay. And we're real proud of it.
Yeah. And it took a while to come about.
It sure did. I think we started working on it about 4 years ago.
Okay.
And of course, there were lots of people interested in helping, but it really was about finding a facility and finding the money to run it, and that was the struggle that took us so long. And when it finally came about, we heard about a grant that was available
Right.
through the Mental Health and Recovery Board and through the State of Ohio Mental Health Services. We had 10 days or less to apply for the grant, but everybody in the group sort of hustled and got the grant around, and we were given the grant to get the place open.
Very nice. Are there facilities like it around here, or any like kind of surrounding counties?
Yeah, there are. There's no real blueprint for how to do these, though. Some are supported through churches, some are supported through grants and other things. So there are, but they're all different.
A little bit different.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of what struck me about your facility is that you develop it the way that it's going to work for the people who need it. So talk a little bit about who you serve or what the requirements are for somebody to live there, Judy.
The requirements are, well, first of all, the Lighthouse Sober Living is a facility and a sober living house for men who are residents of Ottawa County. Okay. And they have an application process that they have to go through in order to determine their eligibility. And in that application, they have to set forth what their history has been, what their recovery plan is, the things that they're doing for their recovery, the goals that they have for themselves as far as where they would like to see themselves in the future. And then that application is reviewed, and a determination is made then whether or not to accept that man into the home. Okay.
And so this is for people who have gone through treatment?
Typically, yes. Okay. The men who apply have typically either gone through an intensive outpatient program or are in the process of completing that. Okay. They may have gone to some sort of a private residential facility, more of a short-term 30 to 90-day program, and are looking for a more long-term sober living environment, or it may be someone who has gone to a correctional based treatment facility, which is a little longer term treatment program and can be up to 180 days. And again, looking for somewhere that they can receive the support and environment that they need to continue that sobriety.
Can they get treatment while they are there? Like, can somebody just kind of refer themselves and say, I've just made this decision and I want to go through outpatient treatment. Can I stay here while I'm getting treatment?
No, we are not a treatment facility, and that is actually a very good point, and something that we do need to stress is that we are a sober living home. What we do in assisting the men who reside there is that we make referrals to the community agencies that will be able to provide them with the services that they need, whether that's continued outpatient counseling for drug and alcohol treatment, whether that's mental health treatment, whether that's referring them to job and family services for employment or medical assistance. The whole purpose of the home is to utilize the community resources that we already have to assist the men who are living there.
Okay. I want to take it just a half a step back, talk about the facility itself. It needed some renovation, and that was kind of a cool project. I remember seeing some things in the paper, and like the people who might be participating are just family members, concerned citizens. How did it get renovated?
Well, it was magically all right. We had, our board was very involved with the renovation. I guess to back up, we looked for facilities for a couple of years, something that we thought we could afford, something we could continue to pay utilities on and all that sort of thing. Well, we found the church there on 515 East 5th. Okay. It was in a little bit of rough shape, actually, but it was set up as a church. It certainly wasn't set up as a home. It had a good heating system and some good infrastructure kind of things done to it, but it needed a lot of work. One of our board members, Jim Piercefield, came in. He's a carpenter, has been for all his life. He's in his 70s. He came and worked every day from February through August on this project, and had help from people in the community, help from board members. Lots of people came over and gave us a hand when it came to tearing things out, when it came to putting new materials in, building the bedrooms. We had local contractors help us with drywall and drywall finishing. Okay. So the community really came together for us.
Nice.
Yeah.
And how is it? It's a church turned into a home. It might be a little hard to visualize. So bedrooms, living area, all that? Yes.
Actually, the church lended itself very well to converting it to a home. The center part of the church is where the main sanctuary was previously, and that was converted to essentially a great room. Half of the room is used for living space, and then the other half is used for more recreation and group type activities. As you're facing the building, the left wing is essentially the kitchen. The kitchen is like 25 feet wide and about 40 feet long. So it is a full kitchen with nice long table for all of the guys to eat together. And then on the right wing of the church is what was converted to bedrooms, which previously had been the Sunday school classrooms that we were able to actually pretty easily convert to bedrooms.
To bedrooms, okay. And they're shared, two people?
Yes, the bedrooms are set up to house two men to each room.
Okay. And what is the maximum occupancy for this one?
Maximum occupancy is 10 residents and then a resident manager or resident.
Okay. Does that person live there too?
Yes.
Okay. Very cool. So 10 people can live there. Is it full?
Right now?
Yeah.
No.
Okay.
No, it is not. We have 5 residing there right now, and we have kind of intentionally not jumped in to fill this the house right away, because one of the things that's very important is that you have a continuum of sobriety, that not everybody have that same length of sobriety, that everybody kind of be in different places where those who have been working their recovery plan for a longer period of time can provide support and encouragement to those who are maybe earlier in recovery. So we as a board have tried to be very careful about making sure that the residents that are there are going to mesh well, and it's going to form a real community.
Right. That's nice. That's not something I would have thought of, but you don't want everybody who got out of the same treatment plan on the same day, because everybody's in the same place. It's nice to have someone who's been on the journey a little bit longer.
Exactly.
Somebody who's brand new, they can kind of help each other, motivate each other a little bit, I would imagine. And then personality-wise, I think you always have to look at that too. Whenever there's a close living quarters, you got to look at that too.
Right.
Is there a time limit for how long they can stay there, I guess?
No.
Okay.
Actually, that was one of the requirements of the grant that we received from the Ohio Mental Health and Addiction Services. There is no time limit. A resident can stay as long as he likes, provided that he is complying with the rules of the house and obviously wants to stay there. What we're typically seeing, though, historically from other sober living situations, is that when a year to 18 months of sobriety is achieved, typically by that point the resident has reestablished their financial situation. They've cleared up many of the issues that they have neglected over the years, and have secured stable employment and are in a position to be able to live independently, and typically want to at that point. But unlike many facilities, one of the things that the Ohio Mental Health and Addiction Services was really encouraging was that there not be a time limit, that someone not be told that, okay, you can only stay here 6 months and you have to find somewhere else to live.
That's nice. It's a well thought out plan, if I do say so myself. All right, we're going to take a quick break and we'll be right back to talk more about Lighthouse Sober Living. Lighthouse Sober Living with Judge Bruce Winters and Judy Flood. So, facility for 10 men, no necessary time limit, but these men need to be darn serious about staying sober. And talk a little bit about, you kind of started at the end of the last segment about some of the services, taking care of things in the past, and a lot of times that takes a while. What all do you help, and how do you help them get through all that?
Most of the people who have been through addiction have sort of neglected their life. They've given up on their jobs, their relationships, maybe even their health. So a lot of what we want to do is kind of a holistic approach to getting their life back. Many people have been in addiction maybe since they were mid-teens and have never really had any kind of a normal life. So we want to give them some exposure to a full life. They have neglected things like their legal issues. They've neglected things like their health and their faith life and all those sorts of things. So we're trying to do a kind of holistic approach to getting their life back in order. So it's important that the legal things get taken care of. But they also, most of them haven't seen a doctor in years, except an emergency room doctor. Right. We need to get them hooked up with a doctor, with a dentist. We need to get them into some sort of exercise program, perhaps. We want to, most of them don't know how to cook, except for maybe a frozen burrito. So we need to teach them how to cook and something about nutrition. We want to connect, it's kind of a personal goal of mine, that I want them to have exposure to a faith community. So we are absolutely not compelling anyone to be involved with a church or with anything of a religious nature, but we want to make it available to them. One of the things we want to do is have perhaps the local churches come in and provide a meal on an evening to these guys. And even better than just providing a meal is maybe cook the meal there at the house. Show them how to make something while they're there. So we want to involve the faith community and the community generally. Another thing that we think is important is that they need to learn to give back to the community. So many of them are very involved in AA and other 12-step programs and sort of the sober community, but we want them to break out of that into the larger community and help generally with things. Get involved with Playmakers or get involved with Portage Resale or someplace where they can have a well-rounded life. So that's part of what we want to do.
Very nice. And then you work on some of the nuts and bolts and some of the practicalities of maybe the legal issues, the health issues, finances, job searches, that kind of stuff?
Exactly. Some of these folks have had a suspended driver's license for a long period of time and don't have a valid license, which is certainly a barrier to gaining employment. Some of them have child support that they've neglected to pay for a long period of time. So what we try to do is direct them in getting that driver's license back and assisting them with the employment, assisting them with reestablishing their child support obligation and meeting that.
Just kind of wherever they are.
Exactly.
Start wherever they
exactly.
are. And I think the whole premise of, like what you said in the very beginning, if once they have made the decision to be sober and have had some kind of treatment, many of the bridges are burned.
Right.
And the bridges that aren't burned are the person who they last got drugs or alcohol from, and you don't want them to go back into that environment. They really need a completely, like literally a different building.
A new world.
A new world. And then hooking them up with the services that they need. So talk about like what is expected of the participants. Do they contribute financially to the house? Does everybody buy their own groceries?
Yes, residents are expected to contribute to the house. What has been established is a sliding fee schedule, based on what the financial circumstances of the resident are. Understanding that typically a new resident is not going to have a full-time job and be able to contribute a lot to the house. So what we try to do is look at what is their income base and what is their financial obligation. Obviously, if it is a resident who does have a child support obligation, for example, we want them to start meeting that obligation, whether that's in part or in full, whatever is their ability. So we take that into consideration. We take other expenses that they may have into consideration in determining what their contribution is to the house. And then that's reevaluated periodically based upon changes in employment and that type of thing.
Okay. Do you meet with them periodically, like I guess in long-term care, like a care conference? Okay, here's where you are with this. Is this kind of meeting where you want to go? Have you ever thought about volunteering here periodically?
Yes. They are. The residents are met with and go over their recovery plans. What are their goals? What have they accomplished? What do they need in order to attain other goals that they have set for themselves? The house is based on a 4-phase system. And depending on what phase each resident is at, there are certain obligations that they must meet within that phase. And that can mean sober support meetings. It means structured activity, whether that is employment, community service. The goal is that the residents be busy, that it's not a situation where you're sitting around watching TV and those kinds of things. So if you're not working and you're not in treatment, you should be providing community service hours, you should be applying for employment, those types of things. So those are the things that we look at to make sure that they're continuing in their path to recovery.
I think about it's a home, and so everybody has to just somebody do the raking and somebody do the sweeping and somebody has to
absolutely
feed the birds or
absolutely.
Okay.
Everybody has chores, and they're required to keep up with them. It's a house.
Okay.
So.
And it's a house. Talk about visitors. You've mentioned child support. So some people have children. As the bridges are mended over time, can family come and hang out for a while?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. Again, based on the phase that the resident is at, they are permitted to have visitors when they're at the appropriate phase level, and then they are permitted certain lengths of time, and that increases as they move through the phases.
Okay. And then, so do you help when somebody thinks they're ready to be independent again and they've got finances and all that taken care of? Do you help them find a place to live and that kind of stuff, or?
Typically we can guide them and offer them some suggestions with respect to housing. But once again, we're not a treatment facility. Right. So if they would need assistance in that respect, we would obviously make referrals to agencies that would provide that service.
How does somebody get a hold? If somebody themselves, if somebody has a family member who's maybe currently in a treatment program, how do they get a hold of you? Or
as the judge has already indicated, the Sober Living House is located at 515 East 5th Street here in Port Clinton. The phone number is 419-967-9550.
Okay.
So,
and the house manager answers that phone and can kind of answer questions?
Well, or there's a voicemail,
okay.
So you can leave a message and your call will be returned as soon as possible.
Okay.
It is important to note that, and you kind of raised this issue, is that as family members, as folks who care about the alcoholic or the addict, we want to help. That's the natural thing to want to do. While we certainly empathize with family members and those kinds of things, it's important to remember that the Sober Living House is for the resident who wants to be there, not for a family member who wants their person to be a resident, and that can be a real tough situation.
And I think you think it's an issue around here. Addiction of all sorts is an issue everywhere, even around here. And so you might think 10, geez, oh Pete, you need to build a whole complex for people. But again, this is for somebody who is sober and wants to stay sober and is committed to changing probably a lot of things in their life.
I think what we like to say is that it's for people who want it, not for people who need it.
Gotcha.
Yeah, it's I think people have had the misconception that it's going to be a detox facility and I don't know, some awful things going on there. Gosh, it's not. I'd like to say that that's the one place in the city where that everybody living there is clean and sober. We're doing drug testing. We're making sure that people are being clean and sober if they're there. So.
And are they involved with the courts, or I guess drug tests? I didn't think about that.
Not necessarily.
Okay.
I mean, and that is another very good question. There is no requirement that they have court involvement or not court involvement.
Okay. It's just whoever wants it.
I suppose I ought to make that clear. It's not a court project. It is. It's strictly a private project that's run by a board. I can't sentence anyone there. It's not connected with the court at all.
Okay. And it's its own 501c3.
It is.
So if other people see the value as we see the value and want to make a donation, that would be perfectly fine, right?
That would be Much
We can always
appreciated.
make that plug, right?
Right, that's
Absolutely,
right.
All
absolutely.
right, we have about a minute left. Any last minute thoughts that we didn't cover, or something you really want to make sure people know about Lighthouse Sober Living?
Well, we want to be an asset to the community, not only in providing a place for people to stay, but also to outreach into the community and being a valuable part of the community. We think we'll be an asset.
I think so too. Thanks for coming.
Thank
Thank you.
All right, we're going to take another break and we'll be right back. And we're back. I want to thank Judge Winters and Judy for being here today talking about Lighthouse Sober Living, truly an asset to the community, a facility for people who want to be sober, who are ready to be sober and want to stay that way. Some contact information for them. The phone number is 419-967-9550. There is a website, www.lighthousesoberliving.com, and their email, lighthousesoberliving@gmail.com. What a great facility. Maybe you might be interested, maybe somebody you know might be interested. Again, it's just about sharing information. So take the information for yourself or share it with others. If you ever have feedback about a program or a suggestion for a future episode, please let us know by sending a note to Time for Health, 615 Fulton Street, Port Clinton, Ohio, 43452. Or you can email Mrs. Pelz at the high school, cpelz@pccsd-k12.net. So again, think about something you learned today, whether it's useful for you or somebody you know. Share it with them, and until we meet again, I encourage you to make time for health.